reconvene from closed session, and there are no reportable actions that require disclosure. May we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everybody back to the new semester. Looks like everybody's back hard at work today, so Happy New Year to everyone. And let's see, we have per board policy 2350, any person may address the board at this time either on an agenda item or other matters of interest to the public that are within the subject matter and jurisdiction of the board. A maximum of 5 minutes is allowed for each speaker, with a maximum of 15 minutes per item unless otherwise extended by the board. So, do we have any public comments on agenda items? Mr. Lamar.
I have one consent calendar item number 5, the out-of-state travel request. We are going to be leaving on the 9th, not the 10th, because we got a deal on plane tickets which were $250 cheaper if we left on Tuesday than on Wednesday. So we decided to leave on Tuesday.
Okay.
Cost you $300 for the room, but you'll be,
Actually, no. We're staying on Waikiki Beach in 10.
Thank you, Steve. Any others? If not, how about public comments on items not on the agenda? None. Okay. Listen, before we move on to the reports, just want to let everyone know that at around 6:15, if we're not yet completed with the agenda, a couple of board members have some issues that they need to attend to, so they may be leaving. But hopefully, from what I can see, I think we may be done by then. I think we're in transition with respect to student trustees, am I correct?
Yes.
And so we will not have that report, or we do have
We
that
do.
report.
If I
Okay.
could, Mr. President, I just wanted to announce for the public's knowledge that our first semester student representative to the board, Bridget Carrion, was unable to fulfill her full academic year term because of scheduling conflicts with her second semester schedule and the ability to maintain the Academic Senate leadership course. She's a high-achieving student trying to meet all of our goals and objectives for matriculation on time. And when it came down to making a choice between some really high-demand required courses she had to go with her academic priorities. So we support her for that. Student Senate is in the process of going through their protocol. They have a bylaw and a protocol for replacing their officer. In the meantime, we have a Student Senate representative, Mr. Andres Flores, who will be here this evening to give us an update on student information. So, Andres, at this time, I'll invite you to the podium.
Thank you. So greetings, everyone. My name is Andres Flores, and I'm the current student body ambassador for COS. However, I'll be the student trustee for today. The leadership development course will start tomorrow at 11:10 a.m. But we have 2 vacancies in the executive board. Both the positions of student trustee and the commissioner of activities are open. However, I'll be applying for the position of student trustee. But we will fill the vacant positions within the first 2 weeks by appointment. That's all I have to report.
Thank you, Mr. Flores. Tell us a little bit about, since you'll be applying, tell us what high school you attended and what your major is. And
All right. I attended Golden West High School. I recently graduated. I'm 18 years old, and I recently graduated on, I believe, July the. Sorry, I'm new here.
Got you off guard. Don't be nervous.
Let's just say I recently graduated. It was really soon.
Mr. Nunes took you off script. All right,
But
you're
yeah,
among friends.
Yeah, I've graduated from Golden West High School. I plan on majoring in poli-sci and law and a minor in business and economics. I wish to transfer to Stanford, Davis, or Berkeley.
And you're a trailblazer.
Yep, I'm a trailblazer.
Okay.
Golden best.
Very good. And if not, if that doesn't work out, go into communications, because doesn't he have a great radio voice?
I'll tell you something, the vice mayor and everyone I ever meet, that's the first thing they compliment me on.
I
It's
go,
my
wow,
voice.
you got that
Thanks.
voice.
Thank
Okay.
you. Okay, do we have board member reports today? Anybody? Just a small item. I attended the fundraiser for the basketball team on Thursday. That was Thursday.
The Final Four
Final
extravaganza.
Four extravaganza, that's what it
Right.
was. And that's like the second or third time that I've attended that. I'm getting the hang of it now, and I've got to figure out a way to be somewhat inconspicuous to the auctioneer.
Yeah,
He seems to,
we have to.
I thought I was kind of quiet and demure, but he seems to find me and kind of has a way of getting into the wallet. So we'll see what happens next year. So.
Come with a mask on next year. Dressed differently, hat.
I don't see Mr. Foster here. Do we have a foundation report today?
I do, Mr. President, if I could. First of all, Mr. Foster offers his regrets for not being able to be here tonight. He has a personal obligation with his father, who had a recent industrial accident and is in need of some in-home care. So Tim is providing him some support this evening. But Tim wanted me to call your attention to the COS Foundation event cards coming up. And just one, so you have an idea of what's laid out for the foundation in the month of January and February. And just one quick update on behalf of the foundation. Over the winter break, we had a really nice and unexpected call from a couple by the name of Dennis and Sue Hill, who donated a check to College of the Sequoias on New Year's Eve.
Wow.
To provide a scholarship to COS medical students in the amount of $25,000. So it was a really nice surprise. That same couple provided a $6,000 contribution to the Avenue of Education campaign in Hanford just a month before in December. And because they are a Hanford couple and residents, their comfort in making a contact with COS was to our board member, Trustee Zumwalt, in that area. And John, despite the fact that it was New Year's Eve, had no problem getting a hold of me and Tim and making sure that we got that donation in before the tax year ended. So we were excited about that. Thank you, John.
So I'd like to add a little bit too, was on, two people were very helpful, that Tim, of course, and Kristen. I called them at home that in the evening and said, can you, on your day off, can you meet me over at Dennis's office? And of course, what they did, and, but they were able to provide lots of information that made Dennis change his mind, because what they didn't know going to that meeting is he had not made his mind up whether he's going to give the money to us or somebody else.
Oh,
And Tim and Kristen were able to explain to him that the concerns he had, he could control and weren't valid, and that gave him the confidence, and he wrote the check.
teamwork. So that's all for the foundation.
Good job, John. Thank you, Stan. I see Jennifer's already made her way to the podium, so the accreditation
Now we gotta
report is
get out of
next.
here. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but there's been a flurry of information on accreditation the last few weeks, and so this may be a little bit longer than normal, but I'll move as fast as I can. There's two major things to talk about with accreditation. Neither of them directly related to COS, but they are related to the ACCJC. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is the January 4th decision from the Secretary of Education regarding the ACCJC, and then Superintendent Carasosa will talk about the January 6th meeting with the Chancellor's Office Accreditation Task Force and the ACCJC. So as in regards to the January 4th decision from the Secretary of Education, this goes back 2 years in that the Office of Post-Secondary Education sent a letter to the ACCJC in 2013 providing findings after review of complaints by a number of parties, including the California Federation of Teachers. They found ACCJC non-compliant with several areas of criteria for recognition. ACCJC at that time had already, their reviewed on a 5-year basis for credit, just like we are. They're accredited every 5 years for the Department of Education. They had their application in at that time. And in light of that pending application, the Office of Post-Secondary Education, required ACCJC to correct these areas of noncompliance that were found. There were two criteria that the ACCJC appealed at that time in 2014. One of them was on academic and administrative representatives, basically saying that the finding was they did not have enough academic representatives on their visiting teams. ACCJC appealed that. And on the second point, that they had inadequate policies. And that was, the ACCJC also appealed that decision, and that was, that they had failed to ensure in all cases that academics would, that they, would participate, on appeals panels and evaluation teams. So that is just a brief overview of 2 years ago what happened. That appeal has been sitting on the desk at the secretary level for the past 2 years. And what happened is on, let me go to that note, excuse me, on December 17th, and I'm gonna get this one, I gotta make sure I get the academic. It's the NACIQI, which stands for, it's a really long one, I'm sorry you guys, I'm going to give you the right acronym.
We call them NACIQI.
NACIQI, and it stands, and I had this all highlighted, and of course now it's not at the top. It is the, okay, you guys, it's the NACIQI. I'm going to leave it there because I can't find my highlight.
It's a National Quality Controls
Board. Exactly. So on December 17th, they voted to require a 6-month compliance report from the ACCJC, including the ability to approve bachelor's degrees, which is one of the issues that we have around the state now, is that community colleges can do the bachelor's degree. So on December 18th, Dr. Bino wrote a letter to the field describing this finding and saying that they were going to have a first read on policy, new policy or updated policy from the ACCJC for approval of baccalaureate awards in the January 2016 meeting. Since then, on January 4th, Acting Secretary of Education John B. King Jr. upheld the 2014 Department of Education decision and denied ACCJC's appeal. So where that stands now is that the ACCJC has 6 months to respond to those issues and make a determination about whether they're going to meet those standards or not. So basically, I think someone in this audience forwarded it to me. It sounds like ACCJC is on show cause, which is kind of what it is. They have about 15 different items, including the 2 that they appealed, that they have 6 months to respond to. Dr. Bino's letter to the field was very positive, and that they feel that they can meet those standards and requirements and address the criteria, but we will, that's pending, and we'll see what happens in the next 6 months. So that is the first item, which all happened between December 17th and January 4th, and I apologize I didn't have that acronym out, although I know I have it highlighted in all my notes. So any questions on that part of it?
Wow, sounds complicated.
Okay, so the second part is, since then, on January 6th, was the ACCJC meets twice a month, and the accreditation, twice a year, excuse me, I apologize, you guys, twice a year, see, I'm getting all flustered too. 2 years, twice a year, and their meetings are in January and June. The January 6th meeting, the accreditation work group that Superintendent Karasosa sits on was invited to meet with the ACCJC, and Superintendent Karasosa is going to fill us in on that conversation.
Yeah, we are the statewide Chancellor's Office Accreditation Task Force. We issued that report that came out earlier in the fall semester. That's the report that the Board of Governors saw over 2 consecutive meetings, the first time for information and then the second time in November for action. And at the November meeting of the Board of Governors, the Board of Governors took action to adopt the Accreditation Task Force report and its recommendations. And so the direction that was given to The task force was to prepare, to serve in an advisory capacity to the chancellor to help prepare an action plan for moving California's 113 community colleges to a new accrediting system. So the first step in that was us asking the commission, the ACCJC, to be on their January meeting agenda so that we could review the task force report with them and entertain any questions that they had. So they did set us up a time to be able to be there and sit with them during their regular meeting. We spent about 90 minutes together. We reviewed, the task force reviewed all of the elements of the report and our rationale and our recommendations, and then we fielded about 30 or 45 minutes of questions from them. The presentation from the task force to the commission closed with the attorney, the legal counsel from the chancellor's office, reciting for them the resolution that the Board of Governors took action to adopt, and made sure that they understood that the next steps for this task force are to develop a plan of action for proposing a new model for accreditation. And then we invited the ACCJC to provide us input and feedback as to what a new model for accreditation could look like. What legal counsel for the chancellor made really clear to the commission is that the intent of the Board of Governors action and what was in the resolution they adopted was to leave the status quo, that the current configuration or the current operation of the ACCJC was not going to be acceptable. Status quo was not going to be acceptable to fit the definition of a new model. So then the accreditation task force met for about another 4 hours after that. I was there till 5 o'clock Wednesday night, and have begun work on preparing a plan of action and recommendations that we'll give to the chancellor that he and his staff would then work up and have ready for a Board of Governors meeting in March. That information is coming out to the field now. I think there's going to be opportunities for kind of the bigger organizations and associations, State Academic Senate, CCLC, Association of California Community College Administrators. Everybody's going to have a chance to weigh in again now on what a new model could look like between now and March. And then the final recommendations will be prepared by the chancellor to go to the Board of Governors.
And
Questions?
And just to let you know, Superintendent Carasosa sent out an e-news today that has some attachments to the letter from the secretary. And I have copies of the letter from Dr. Bino and can forward you that as well if you want a copy of that.
Yeah.
I have a pretty complicated question here. I read that letter or the decision from the Department of Education. And something I didn't understand before is that our the feds accredit the accreditor, who in turn accredits us.
Yes.
Okay, keeping that in mind, one of the criticisms that a lot of the active players in the accreditation group had was that people like San Francisco spent all their time fighting instead of changing. And reading the rest of this material, it appears that perhaps they're guilty of having the same kind of conduct. The state, the federal said 12 months, and you're talking about something else that gives them 6 months. There are players in that group besides the one that were at the chancellor's meeting. You know, you've got people that vote, and I don't imagine they were all there. Where I'm going with all this is do you think they're going to get religion and actually fix things? And if they don't, if they lose their accreditation, what happens to our accreditation?
Couple of things. One, I'll answer the second question first, because the first question would be pure speculation.
Sure.
Although I'm kind of a spiritual guy. I think that what happens to us is we will remain intact, and there have been a couple of models already put forth for how a transition might go. And this is purely hypothetical, so I don't have any authority. I'm not speaking as though I've heard that this is what would actually happen. But we've had those conversations, John, and a typical transition would look like this. That let's say that the 113 California community colleges had some sort of a process that allowed them to begin to merge with, and here's one of the things that you'll see coming out from the task force, the most recent version of the task force, is that we really aren't so hung up on the past and what's went wrong and who doesn't trust who and all of that. We really are trying to align California's community colleges with an accrediting body that accredits colleges and universities. We're the only state left in the union, and California is the only state that has community colleges functioning under a separate accreditor than accreditors who do colleges and universities. There's 1,200 community colleges across the state of California, and all of them, except our 113, have accrediting bodies that also accredit colleges and universities. So we want to look at how we can merge with one of those. The candidate on the West Coast would be WASC, the Western Association of Schools and Colleges, and they have what's called WASC Senior that accredits colleges and universities. And in talking with them, and we have had conversations with their representatives already, they talked about a transition like
Who is we?
the task force,
Okay.
the accreditation task force members, and Pam Walker, who's the Deputy Chancellor at the Chancellor's office. They have talked about transitions when other institutions have come into senior WASC, that you complete your normal cycle and you set up a transition period and you complete your normal cycle of accreditation. And when it's your time to be accredited and the decision's been made to transition, let's take COS for example. If things were to happen quickly enough that we had a transition plan in place that we would be operating under to move to a new accrediting body, when we're up for our accreditation in 2018, we would be working 100% status quo like we are right now, aligning to and fulfilling the current ACC-JC standards. When it's our time to be accredited in 2018, because it's our first time since this transition period opened, we would actually be accredited in 2018 by a body like WASC Senior, but they would be reviewing us against the ACC-JC standards that we were expected to be compliant with the 6 years previous. And then they would give us feedback on our accrediting status regarding those, and they would give us a crosswalk for each of the standards that we had and how those standards align with the new standards, and then they'd give us a period. You now have 3 years to build your crosswalk to the new standards and provide us a written report of your compliance with the new standards, and then the following 3 years out, they come back around for a full visit with a team from the new accrediting body. So we're looking at probably a 5-year period, John, to get everybody through that process, because everybody is somewhere within 6 years or less of their next accreditation.
So then we don't care if they get religion or not.
Again, that's a statement you can make.
And there's been a lot of,
Well, the point is, if we're gonna,
It won't affect
if
us.
California is accredited by somebody else, well then,
Yeah, it doesn't affect us if the ACC-JC chose not to comply, or because the task force has the authority now to make a recommendation to the Board of Governors to implement a transition plan, and the
Okay.
Board of Governors can put wheels in motion to make that happen.
be interesting to watch.
and just point of information as well, there's a lot of change going on at ACC-JC itself. Susan Clifford, Dr. Clifford, who we all know, she came out several times. She was our one of our visiting team. She was a visiting team member. She did our Tulare substantive change approval and spent a couple days with us. And she was the person that Dr. Trimble and I were calling and answering the phone at 10 p.m. on a plane while we were in the midst of writing the show cause report. She has recently retired. And she was in charge of all the substantive change and those kinds of things, and was the person I worked most closely with there. And then Krista Johns, who was the other person we worked very closely with and who was out here just last semester to do a training here at COS. She is now president at Berkeley City College. And so there's a lot of change going on with the leadership there as well.
One comment I want to make, just because I thought I'd like to make Thea's day for once in a while, is I noticed in that report that one of the harshest criticism was is that faculty participation was at best minimal, and that needed to be corrected.
Yeah. And I think one of the things we need to give Dr. Trimble accolades for is she goes on a site visit every year. And it is a lot of work for those of us, Brent and I and Stan and Dr. Trimble and who else went?
John's gone.
John have all just
Chris Keene went.
Right, have recently gone on visits. It is a lot of work for a faculty member to be gone for a week, plus the preparation that they have to do in advance. So it's a huge commitment, and it's very difficult.
That's all I have, thank you.
And it's the National Advisory Committee on Institutional Quality and Improvement.
Nasiki. We call them
Okay,
Nasiki.
thank you, Jennifer. If there's no other questions, we'll move on to another superintendent's report.
Okay, I would like to begin my report tonight by turning the podium over to our deans who are going to assist us in making some introductions of new management staff who have been hired. We're going to start with Thad Russell.
Good evening. So as everyone knows, we have a number of initiatives, a number of grant-supported initiatives that focus on student success. In a lot of cases, and most of the ones that I deal with are really focused on student transition, so that transition from high school to college, from the two-year college onto the four-year college or university. With the number of grants that we're dealing with and a number of groups that we're working with and other organizations, we felt compelled to create a position, a grant-funded position, the Career and Technical Education Grant Manager. I'm here this evening to introduce Michael Niehoff to you. Michael most recently comes from the Fresno County Office of Education, spent 25 years in education, focuses on real-world, relevant career and technical education, and has been a writer, has been involved in a number of educational blogs. He was the founding principal at Minarets High School, Google certified teacher, has been recognized as a site leader of the year and as a principal of the year. So I'll give you Michael.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit of what Russ didn't already say.
I'm just very excited to be here. I think career technical education has been and needs to be where it's at in terms of getting students connected to, lifelong careers, and excited to be part of COS. I've been treated extremely well so far, but I'm really excited about where they work and who they work with, and so I've always been impressed with Visalia and Tulare County as far as in education and beyond, as far as the pride in their community and so on. So I come from Fresno area, but real excited to be a member of this community now, so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any questions?
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
We would ask more questions if we didn't have such a time frame.
Hi, Cindy Delane. She'll make our next introduction, please.
Good evening. I'm here to present Miriam Salam, Director of Foster Youth Educational Programs, after the retirement of Linda Paredes, who was with us for 15 years and did such a fabulous job. And we have someone to take over and will also be doing a fabulous job, I'm sure. She graduated from Fresno State University with a master's in social work. Most recent position was as lead social worker for Tulare County Child Welfare Services for the last 8 years. Has worked diligently with foster youth, emancipated youth, foster parents, the biological parents, and different kinds of service providers. As you can imagine, it takes all kinds of skill sets to work in that kind of environment, and she has done that very successfully and has gained knowledge of the juvenile judicial system, including welfare and institution codes related to child welfare and probation. Knows and worked with licensing regulations for relative caretakers and foster parents. And she's also knows COS a little bit because she had worked with Linda as a trainer in our foster youth education program, assisting the transition of foster youth into adulthood. Those fun classes like financing, keeping your checkbook, credit, voting, housing options, to name a few. And as a former foster youth, Miriam is someone who not only has a wealth of professional experience, but who has had actual experiences our own students can definitely relate to. So who better to be a role model here at COS than Miriam? So Miriam?
Thank you. Any questions? Just want to know anything?
We just want you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, like Cindy said, I did recently graduate about 3 years ago with my master's degree in social work, and as a former foster youth, it's just my honor to be able to give back to our youth who are emancipating and going on to adulthood and assisting them in their transition to make it smooth. And also, I'm really big on education. That's been my push on my own. So as I've taught or trained here for our foster youth, that's been my push, and I'm really excited to be able to assist in that transition as well and help them with their success here at COS.
Thank you. Sounds like a great fit. Welcome.
Thank you, and I apologize, I'm a little ill, so my throat is a little
Well, listen,
scratchy.
feel free to, you don't have to stay for the entire meeting, so feel free to leave if you so choose.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I stand up here with a big old smile because Miss Sandra is here. I hope we find you well tonight and that your holidays were wonderful and restful. I'm very excited for 2016. I think we've been working very hard as a unit with your leadership over us to help us understand what is important here at COS, what matters as far as our master plans, our goals, and our objectives, and ultimately what that comes down to when we're standing at the front line and we're serving our students. And we have had the wonderful opportunity when I was offered the position of Dean of Student Services to have my prior position, Access and Ability Center Director, open up. And as you know, with Access and Ability Center, it is a very special population that we work with, a population that might have disabilities that are very apparent and disabilities like myself that are very secret, that you can't see on the outside. As I'm very passionate for the students I had the opportunity to serve and will continue to be able to serve as the dean, we have gone out 3 times for this position. And the one thing I know in life is that nothing's by mistake, and all things happen in the right time, in the right place. And the reason being because this wonderful candidate was the one that we needed. Sandra Calderon has been a person of passion, a person who understands the world of disability, as she has worked with the Department of Rehab for over 20 years. Not only has she done that, but she has also worked here at the College of the Sequoias for several years, and most specifically, most recently, in Access and Ability Center, working as an adjunct counselor very closely with our populations, both at the centers and at the College of Sequoias at our main campus. She is fully aware, immersed, and passionate about the students we serve, about the staff that we support, and about the community we live in. So we are truly honored today to have her come. And I'm very excited to hand over that hat to her as well, but very thankful for her and her passion and for the team that guided us through the hiring process to find the very right candidate to pass this very important position over. So with that, I give you Sandra Calderon.
Thank you, Michelle, for the kind words. I very greatly appreciate that. Like she said, I worked 23.5 years with the state of California as a vocational rehab counselor, so I'm very much aware of the issues students with disabilities face, or adults as well. I'm very excited to be here. I'm looking forward to the challenge, because it is a challenge. I was there today, and I was like, wow. But I'm very excited. I think it's a great opportunity for me, and I'm looking forward. I've been with the college for about 8 years, so this is a little bit different for me, but I'm very much looking forward to the future, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome. Welcome. Sounds like another great fit.
Thank you.
Any-
I have our last one, Ken. I have our last introduction.
okay, great.
We're filling in for our provosts if we need to tonight. I see Dr. Waldner was able to make it, but Dr. Robinson is on site at the Hanford Center tonight. It's the first night of classes, and she's needed there for lots of things that happen. So I told her that it would be really fun for me to be able to introduce our fire technology coordinator. You're aware that we have a great tradition in our fire technology program and in our fire academy. We're pleased to announce tonight, or actually introduce to you tonight, Mr. Rick Smith. Rick was actually ratified on your December 14th board agenda, but he's here tonight for formal introduction. Rick has earned his bachelor's degree in management from Fresno State University, but first and foremost, he was a COS alumni and a member of our Fire Academy program when he began his career. He was the fire captain for Kings County Fire Department for 16 years. He's currently serving as the Battalion Chief Fire Marshal for Kings County Fire Department, and he has for a long time also served as an adjunct instructor for COS in the Fire Technology Program. Please join us in welcoming and congratulating on his new assignment, Rick Smith.
Thank you very much. I'd like to say that I'm also a graduate of the COS Fire Academy, and I think President Reagan's term, it's been a while, a year or two since I was there. But I did a total of 32 years in the fire service and almost 20 years of instruction, both in ROP programs in Kings County and here at College of Sequoias. And I'm looking forward to the challenges that the fire technology program faces. There's some changes in curriculum that are being sent to us from the State Fire Marshal's office, who designs a lot of the curriculum that we use in the program. And we have to get our program updated and ready to go and continue to serving the needs of our students and the fire service community in Kings and Tulare counties. It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you.
Anybody from Hanford can't be all bad, so that's...
That's the nicest thing I ever said.
Well, it's the nicest thing I've heard today for sure, so I'll take it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, looks like that concludes our introductions for today, and Dr. Trimble is chomping at the bit to get up here and give her report.
I just have a couple of
Take all the
items.
time you need.
On Friday, we ran some training for our new senators and also any prospective senators. The training was on the roles of the Academic Senate, and we covered the Title V regulations, Ed Code regulations that govern the Academic Senate. We also had a training on Robert's Rules of Orders, so we can get through our meetings in a timely fashion. The other change that has happened, Deborah Nolan, the Director of Distance Education, had been our Faculty Enrichment Chair, the Faculty Enrichment Committee Chair, and as we are now transitioning into the new course management system of Canvas, she needed to step away from that position in order to get us switched over, to help us all get switched over to Canvas. So in the interim, Lisa Greer has volunteered to chair the FEC committee, and her appointment will start this semester.
Good. Great. Any questions for Dr. Trimble? Thank you. Welcome back. Do we have a report, an update from Costa today?
No
Apparently
report.
not. I know we'll have a report from CSEA.
Just very briefly, want to say CSE is closely following the Friedrichs versus CTA case, which started oral arguments today at the U.S. Supreme Court. So that's something we are all watching, because that could have a devastating effect on unions or not. We don't know.
Thank you, Steve.
So which way should we go for?
Well, that's a hard one to say.
All right. Mr. Nichol, do we have a report from you today? No?
Mr. President, before we leave reports, could I make one last quick presentation?
Absolutely.
Okay. I was going to do it during my reports, but you were moving so quickly.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. You know, at the December meeting, we have our organizational meeting of the board, and that's the time every year where we elect our new officers and appoint the different board members to committees and so on. Not knowing exactly how that election will go until after the meeting. We don't know in any given organizational meeting year if we're going to have a new board president or not. This year, we did have the honor to have Ken take the position as board president. But I wanted to make sure that we didn't let the opportunity slip past at this very next meeting to offer our official congratulations on the term that she served as our past president, Lori Cardoza, and to present her with a little memorabilia from us that she can hopefully hang in her office that reminds her of the wonderful work that she did and the really interesting, but I think productive times that College of the Sequoias came through during her term as president. So we have for you tonight, Lori, a little plaque prepared for you that says Board of Trustee President Lori Cardoza in recognition of your outstanding service, 2013 through 2015.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and I appreciated my time. I think I said that last time, so I won't give any more comments, but.
Well deserved. I would say I have some big shoes to fill, but that may not be quite appropriate in this circumstance anyway.
Well, it was a pleasure working with all the staff and faculty and administrators here too, and most of you have stayed long enough this time that we've been here a few years together, and that's been refreshing for me. We had some turnover for my first few years on the board, so to all of our deans and VPs and those of you that have been here for a while, it's been comforting, and I think that's why accreditation, getting through show cause was so much easier because of that, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are on to the consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. An item may be removed from the consent calendar at the request of any member of the Board of Trustees or any person in the audience and considered as a separate agenda item. First, do we have any items that need to be removed from the consent calendar? Mr.
Did we
Zumwalt.
remove 5 or not? Because of what he was talking about, or
Can we approve it with the change as noted?
Yes.
from the 10th to the 9th?
Yes.
But we do need to note that change in the motion.
Okay.
As long as we note the change in the motion, we can take it.
You want to pull it?
Well, if you need a formal action to change it, we'd have to. We can pull it real quick and.
And take it separate?
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll
item
do it that way
5.
also.
Okay,
Oh, but I have one correction anyways, though, just on the minutes, I didn't close the meeting. Megan.
I want to pull
What did I
item
do?
1.
Oh, you
Okay, we have
Gotta pull it
one
out.
conversation at a time.
Hold on, we'll let John go, sorry.
all right,
Okay.
Mr. Zumwalt.
Well, item 1 is the minutes, and I hope you don't think I'm nitpicky. There's a method to my madness, but on page 3, on the foundation report, that Mr. Foster gave you under the 4th bullet, and it says the Hanford Avenue Education Event, which partners with the Hanford City Christopher Auction, raised $10,900 in donations, which is exactly double the amount donated last year. You'll recall, Mr. Foster said more than that. I've written here, Mr. Foster made special mention that the total included a generous gift of $6,000 from Dennis and Sue Hill. I'd like to see that added. If you think that's what he said, and you can imagine why I want that.
Of course.
And
All
then
right.
Lori had something too.
Yeah, sorry, I just didn't close the meeting, Ken did, it says.
Yes,
Lori.
Right.
that is a total, because we have a new president.
Right, we pulled up the old minutes and.
It's okay, I sat in the wrong chair in the closed session today,
But
too,
I will
so.
definitely add their names.
What?
I'll take care of that.
All right, so are we going to pull item 1? Is that how we're going to
Yes.
do that?
So-
Okay,
so take item 1.
Item 1 we'll take separately.
Right.
And
Oh, I
so,
thought you just did, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
and so now,
You're taking item 5 separately.
and we'll take
And we'll
item
take
5
5
separately as
separately.
well. So do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar items 2, 3, and 4?
So moved. Second.
We do have a motion and a second to approve items 2, 3, and 4. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Any opposed?
Any opposed? That's none. All right. Item 1, we'll go back and address that. And John, would you like to kind of rehash that if you don't mind?
Yeah,
Or-
to add to the 4th bullet, at the end of what's written there, add, Mr. Foster made special mention that the total included a generous gift of $6,000 from Dennis and Sue Hill.
Okay, we have that noted. And
Okay.
then,
Move to approve.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve item 1 of the consent calendar with the changes as noted. All those in favor?
the minutes.
The minutes, I'm
We
sorry.
pulled this separately. So this action is on those minutes, consent calendar item number 1.
Exactly.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
I moved already, we just need a
Yeah.
second.
Okay, we moved and John seconded.
John second.
Uh,
Yeah.
Any further
Actually,
discussion?
John made the motion. Lori,
I second.
Lori seconded.
Okay, that's right.
All
John did make the motion.
We got you. We're here.
All right, so now that
Now all we
we,
need to do is vote on this
so
one.
now that we have the motion and the second, all those in favor?
Aye. Sorry.
Opposed? Motion carried. So item 1, the minutes of the previous meeting have been approved with the changes noted. Now we'll address item 5
Go ahead.
of the consent calendar, the out-of-state travel request.
I move we approve item 5 by changing the date from the 10th to the 9th.
Thank
Second.
you.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve
I
item
listened to
5, out-of-state travel request with the changes noted as well. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion,
That's the longest
Passes.
consent calendar we've had.
yeah, it seemed like the shortest when I looked at it. All right, we're down to the action items, item 6, and we have 4 board policies. The following revised policies were reviewed and approved by Senior Management, District Governance Senate, and Academic Senate.
So you will note on your agenda this evening that these are back here for a second reading. So the first reading was before you as a board, you waived that and took action to move them to the second reading. And as our introduction notes, these changes, these happen to be, all but one of them happen to be 10+1. So you need to know that they have gone through, actually all of them are 10+1. And they have gone through the appropriate approval process, including district governance, senior management, and final approval and recommendation directly to the board from Academic Senate. I'll answer any questions you might have on any of those that we read last time.
All right, do we have any, we have a motion for these?
I'll make a motion that we waive the second reading and approve all 4 of the proposed board policies.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to pass on the reading and approve the board policies as listed. Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Item 7, Ms. Staton. Looks like this is our annual
Yes, it sure
setting
is.
of the,
Good evening. So it's the annual non-resident tuition fee, and it needs to be approved by you, the board, by February 1st for 2016-17. And we are proposing a fee of $211 per semester unit for non-resident students. Usually they are out of state. And we also continue to collect the $100 application fee. We are staying with the statewide average, at least that's what we're proposing. We were with a statewide average of 200 last year. And even though the actual came in a little less this year, we thought it would be good to stay with the statewide average as we move forward. So we're requesting your approval of the 16-17 non-resident tuition rate of $211 per semester and authorize the collection of the $100 foreign country student application fee offset. So the $100 is foreign country student application fee offset.
I move we approve the non-resident tuition fee.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to approve the non-resident tuition fee schedule for 2016-2017 year. Do we have any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Dr. Waldner, you're up next.
Okay, so this action item is regarding, really the action is regarding the discussion with the Farm Operations Committee, who's made a recommendation to the Ag Executive Advisory Committee, and it is for, to do a lift pump project for the farm operations that we have out at the Tulare College Center. So the actual action item is we analyzed where we would take those dollars, the best return of an investment in our, so we're looking at that from the special farm reserves account. And so that's the particular action item. But I think anticipating maybe some of your questions or concerns and a little more analysis than maybe was in the cover sheet. And I'm going to ask both Christine and Stan to pitch in here if I'm off base a little bit. But essentially, regarding the payment, the reason we're looking at that particular account is because we think this is a long-term investment and to continue to run our farm operations this particular year we think that's the best, or I think that's the best place for that to come to, and we've discussed that in the Ag Advisory. But why we're doing the project in general, we are trying to access the surface water. So currently we have really two working wells. One is our well number 4, and that particular well is not functioning as well. I mean, it's functioning, but the water levels are getting tight with that. I'm going to miss some of the details, so if you've got those questions, some of that I might have to come back and research. But in general, we've got the well number 4. We've got well number 3, which really we're at 200 feet is the water level. That well is at 200 feet. We're not getting the acre foot that we need at all. So essentially, well number 1, and as was put in the background information, that is what prompted us over this past year to work with the city of Tulare for the Tulare well. So the Tulare well is pumping, and so between well number 4 and the city well, we are getting the coverage, some of the coverage that we need, and on the property and the irrigation that we need. But back to the surface water, just in general, the Farm Operations Committee feels that we've got the ditch and we've got the opportunity to access that surface water. It's something that we need to do. So when we purchased the property however many years ago, and I didn't put that historical fact, but when we purchased the property, we also purchased 5 shares. It says in your cover sheet, Farmers Ditch Company. Ms. Stratton and I, when we were talking today, we have Consolidated People Ditch in your cover sheet. It turns out that it's Farmers Ditch Company, and I won't go into the why that's a little bit confusing. But regardless, we got those 5 shares from the Ditch Company. And today, actually, we reconfirmed with James Silva, the director of that particular ditch, what would be the value of those particular shares. So the value is about 30 to 40 acre feet per share. So for our 5 shares, there's about 175 acre feet total for our 5 shares of water that we can access. Trying to consider, what's the cost in that investment. With our current agreement with the city of Tulare, or a return on investment in that, for our current agreement with the city of Tulare, we pay about $120 per acre foot. And so when you calculate the investment that you see on the sheet, about the $69,000 investment, we think we would recoup that investment, that $69,000, in about 3.3 years if you use the $120 from the city of Tulare. Now, when I say that, so it takes us 3.3 years to recoup that $69,000 investment that we're getting. I think, Christine, your calculation went a little differently. It was 575 acre feet we would have to recoup. I guess when I consider that, one of the conversations I had with one of the farmers on the committee, one of the businessmen on the committee, is that we're getting a pretty reasonable cost from the Tulare well. That's $120, which you could look upwards of $500 to $1,000 per acre foot to try to get the type of water we're getting from the city of Tulare, the relationship we have with them at this point. So that's one consideration, but but why we're accessing that water is it's time to really access that water, get access to that, utilize those 5 shares. Over the last 4 years, In particular, there hasn't been availability for that surface water at all because of the drought. But we are seeing, and if you've been watching the news, they're releasing water right now even. So we think mid-February that water will be released. And our only way to really access that surface water, obviously, is to have the lift pump that, and in addition to that lift pump, and I know there've been questions or a question of what goes with that. So we not only get the lift pump, we're using the farm operations determined instead of a 10 horsepower pump, we'll probably get a 20 horsepower pump, and the good reason for that, and we'll also lift through the gravity, I guess, the standpipe as well, because where we're putting that is on the very, if you think about the property, on the very, let me get it right, the southeast corner of the property, and where we're trying to push that water, we're trying to push everything uphill all the way to the northwest corner of the property. And so, so we think the farmers felt like the 20 horsepower pump, there was a lot of decisions about, you know, how do you get it to flow and those kinds of things. But all of that was in the $69,000 investment. Trying to think of other kinds of things.
Can I,
Yeah,
while
please.
you're regrouping there, Luann, I guess also just more from a conceptual standpoint. We have a big multi-hundred acre facility there, and we are in a drought area. The drought is cyclical. Some years we get surface water access, some years we don't. What we didn't have there with those shares of ditch property is we didn't have the ability to get the water from the surface in the years that it's there. And so we felt like, because we've been through this really tough drought, that we have an opportunity to put a piece of infrastructure in, an investment, that's just one more tool for us to make sure we have water to the facility and the property. It may not be worth a dime in years that there isn't going to be irrigation water flowing, but it's not worth anything to us now in years when irrigation water does flow if we can't access the water and move it up. So we're trying to invest as a capital improvement on the facility to say that we've got multiple options now to access water, one more option being this access to the surface water.
Has there been any talk about drilling?
Well, we did.
We've done well drills already, and that's the reason we went to, I'm sorry, Luann, that's the reason we went to the partnership with the city, Greg, to access their well. Because a new well was going to get us nearly $1 million investment.
Really?
Yeah.
And 700,000.
Because you got to go to 700 feet or
What
something.
about, you know, each year we vote on something with ditch water that we sell or lease to somebody. Can we use some of that to get more ditch water?
Maybe.
Well, we just, do you
That was
want
the
to address that with
The shares. Mhm.
We're still researching that, but initially, there are no shareholders, it seems, that own property for Evans Ditch that are also contiguous to Farmers Ditch. So if there was, perhaps we could.
Yeah, but
talk them
We're
into
looking to
trading.
take the shares we own and try to trade so
yeah,
that we
that's
get
what I was
more
thinking.
access to
Yeah.
where we have the pump.
Yeah,
We're doing that.
okay.
Yeah. I think we're a little iffy as to whether that's even possible based on some of the discussions we've
Right,
had, but
right.
we'll still work on that. Yeah.
So I think the reason we're here before you tonight is the drought, the extent of this most recent drought rocked us pretty good. We left acreage fallow. We had to subsidize support for the Ag Instructional Program because Farm Operations Committee wasn't able to generate the same resources that they normally do. So Farm Operations has been in kind of a full court press to try to bolster the capacity for water on the site. The first big project, as Luann said, was the partnership with the city of Tulare and getting that pipage in and access to their well. The second in their kind of two-step process is to make an investment from the farm special reserve and put the boost pump in so we have capacity now forevermore whenever, because in the cycles, there's always going to be a cycle where we have surface water. So we wanted to position ourselves well to be able to do that and went to Farm Executive Advisory Board and they've approved the recommendation as well. So it's before you here tonight.
Okay.
Any
Any
other
questions or comments? Mr.
Well,
Zumwalt?
have you had feedback on it?
I have. I've had feedback, and I've talked to a number of members on the Farm Advisory Committee and people I know that are familiar with the site, and I agree with Stan. I mean, we need to take the surface water when we can get it the regulation's gonna come down the pike also, in the next 10 years, we know, the SGMA's here, and these basins are gonna be regulated, our underground water's gonna be regulated, and that's gonna limit us even more on what we can pump from under the ground. And we're probably gonna have to sink water, and the only way you can do that are on the good years like this year, when it's coming down that canal, and you can sink back into your basin. So
Right.
I think long-term, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Is that a motion?
John has a question. I'll make a motion, but yeah, I'm going to recommend we approve it, but that's the information I have, and I feel good about it.
Well, I think so am I, but I have quite a bit. I have had some communications with the staff, and the only board member I included was Ken, because I didn't want to violate the Brown Act. I have been hounding on the farm out there about surface water for years, and everybody until this report said we didn't have any surface rights. Now, I don't question you, you're more thorough than your predecessors. But I'll come back to that. Is if the 5 shares, you say it brings 50 to 70 acre feet per share.
30 to 40, I think, right?
I'm sorry.
It varies, but that's what they're telling us.
I'm sorry,
this
it
year.
adds up to 150 to 200 acre feet. Now, is that in a normal year? Or is that the average?
I don't know if I know the answer to that. I think for this particular year, the conversations we've had, it started out probably 4 or 5 months ago at about 20 of saying our share would be with 20, but with the water and the rainfall, that we're up to 30 to 40.
Well, jumping ahead to what you get here, if you just do the math, is if that's what you get on the average over a 10-year period, that'd be about 30, 40 bucks an acre feet, which is dirt cheap, so you got to do it. 150 to 200 acre feet will irrigate 60 acres a year, say. But one of the problems we've had at the farm is we do everything by crisis. And I listened to you talk about the wells and find out after hounding those guys for 20 years, or 15 years, we really do have surface right. I think the college needs to actually develop a report about what the hell we do have and what we're going to do, what we need to do. It may end up being a budget item. What Lori said is huge, is we don't know what's going to happen when they start regulating groundwater just around the corner. But if you don't have surface rights, I'd already resigned myself to the fact that we probably fallow half our land out there in order to be able to have water for the rest of it. And also, if you can develop surface rights, sometimes you can rent water rights from somebody else. There's all kinds of ways you can do to enhance this. But see the pants in the way to do it. I agree with you. We should do this, but I'd like to see you guys, if Ken would so direct that come up with a master plan of what we've got and what we need and where we're going.
I think we've had enough discussions over the last year, now that we've actually been out on the new location, to really have at least the outline, John, if not some fleshed out details of an analysis and a plan already done. We just need to get it together.
And a written report that goes to the rest of the world, like not knowing how much water you get out of each well is,
Right.
I had no idea you were using city water to irrigate with. God, that's expensive.
Yeah, well, you did, you just don't recall as we've discussed it here, because you've had to approve those expenses, and we presented them.
If somebody told you it cost you $1 million for a well, I don't believe that.
I don't either. We're drilling one right.
Oh, no, we've already talked about that.
Well, we've, Lori's your board representative, and remember, the debate we've had is that is it a well that you can build for private property?
Right.
Or is it a well that you're building for a college under prevailing wage?
Well, that's my business.
And it wasn't $1 million, it was about $750,000
Not even that.
by the time we got there.
If you're trying to develop a well, say 2,500 gallons a minute, say,
Right.
and if you have to draw up 800 feet, just by coincidence, a client of mine just got done drilling a well, 800 feet, draw 2,500 gallons a minute. He's a cherry farmer. The hole was $200,000, and the plumbing was $125,000. Well, so that'd be $325,000. Well, prevailing wage will maybe make it $400,000 or $500,000. But you got to have a good well too, because some years you don't have.
We have
The rest of the cost, though, the farm committee went over this because they could not believe the cost for a well.
Well, I don't
So-
believe it either.
Well, but it has to go through the state, so it becomes a public well, And so all the regulation and red tape and plans that go with it.
No, wait a minute,
Couple
public well.
$100,000.
What's a public well?
Because it's on a public facility.
What we can do, John, I think that will help is because the Farm Operations Committee meets every month. And we need to set aside, based on this discussion, what we can say to them is we'd like to start to take all of these water discussions we've been having for the last few months and coalescing them into an outline, a plan.
Sure.
But what we should do, John, is invite you to attend a Farm Operations Committee meeting where we put this back on the agenda and talk through it again. Because I think John's perspective would be really good. We haven't had you in there, but we've had other technical engineers, water engineers, and state representatives in there.
But now, public well, if it's drinking water, now that's a different story.
Right.
Well, the struggle we had is whether or not
If
we were
it's-
going to be able to, as a college, whether we were going to be able to build a well to non-potable water standards, or if we were bound to, if it were ever in the future going to be used for people, we had to
Well,
comply.
don't use it for people. Then all you get stuck with is prevailing wage.
I know, but this is the discussion we need to have with you at our Farm Ops Committee.
See, just as a point of reference, that the city well that we refer to is a well that was developed at the time of the COS construction, and that is to potable water standards,
Well,
correct?
Yeah,
That's the
except
city-
remember, they had a period of time where it was testing not clear for potable.
Right.
Some of the wells we drill
So,
over.
because that well is not tied into the city, it's not operational for the city of Tulare residential use, is my understanding at this point. Is that correct?
It is back, the water has now cleared, and it's back accessible for them.
Okay.
So they pull when they need it, and we pull when we need it.
Okay.
But it's an 800-foot well, and they spent almost $1 million.
Well, when we
Yeah.
spend, well, they probably did. We don't do well like that. Over like in Hanford, where you got arsenic issues,
Yeah,
$1.5 to $2 million apiece.
yeah.
But you don't need to do that.
One of our, just as a, kind of related to this, one of our advisory committee members is setting on behalf of us on the Groundwater Sustainability Act Committee that's there in the Tulare Irrigation District, which I think kind of addresses what are we doing in the future with all of that.
So I'll shut up now and say I'd like to see a formal report that includes a master plan.
Okay?
But I also, in the meantime, would agree with Lori that we should approve this.
All right, let's, if there are no other questions, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the irrigation project for the farm operations. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you all very much for sticking with us.